The mass formations of German armor succeed once more in surrounding several Soviet armies and inflict enormous losses on the Russians. For the highly mechanized German army, the problems grow ever more severe. Heavy rain bogs the primitive Russian roads. Only frost complicates the situation. In the icy mud of these roads, the Germans lose precious days. Big movements become impossible. Only the tracked vehicles can still go on. The speed of the supply trucks has fallen to 18 miles a day. Transport gets bogged down in the evening and by morning is stuck in the frozen earth. The advance guard has to wait 3 weeks for fuel and munitions. Further to the rear, the situation worsens. The lines of communication are stretched to the absolute limit. Provisioning is held up, and the Russian railway lines have to be changed to the German gauge, which is narrower. As soon as the frost hardens the earth, thousands of trucks get on the move, hoping to regain lost time. In Moscow, with the Germans now less than 120 miles away, panic sets in. Can the capital be saved? The state of siege, immediately proclaimed, clears any doubts about giving way. The administration is sent to the town of Kubichin, a few hundred miles to the rear. Half the citizens are evacuated towards the east, but the rest prepare to stay and fight. In the squares and boulevards, women dig anti-tank ditches and raise barricades. In a few weeks, 400,000 volunteer workers dig 5,000 miles of trenches. Soon, the city bristles with obstacles, steel and wire, tank traps and barrage balloons to stop the dive bombers. National monuments are protected as far as possible. The Bolshoi Theatre and the Lenin Mausoleum are camouflaged. Moscow prepares for the German attack. Each section of the city supplies an infantry division hastily equipped, and in this way, workmen in uniform wage war against German armor. To counter the morale of the Muscovites, the Luftwaffe launched terror raids. Every evening, hundreds of bombers, the same planes which in the preceding year bombed London, fly eastwards. Each night, the mayor of Moscow, Pronjin, picks up his telephone and gives the alarm.
Воздух. Начальник штаба. Объявите населению воздушная тревога. Да.
As soon as they hear the sirens, people go down into the metro, the subway system of Moscow, built only 3 years previously, and the pride of the country. The German aim is to burn the city, which still has many houses made of wood. In Moscow itself, the civilian population become firefighters and learn to extinguish incendiary bombs. There aren't enough men, so the women and children are grouped into firefighting brigades. On November the 6th, Stalin decides to leave the Kremlin to attend a meeting of the Komsomol. Speaking to the Moscow party leaders on the 24th anniversary of the October Revolution, Stalin attempts to rally the morale of the people. Russian defeats were due to the fact that no second front existed to take the pressure off the Russian armies. But in spite of this, the Germans had failed to reach the Urals in the summer campaign. The next day, November the 7th, the traditional parade takes place in Red Square, under cover of the heavy snow clouds, and Stalin makes another speech there. Stalin, who had weakened the Red Army by the ruthless purges of the 1930s, realizes that only the loyalty and devotion of the army can save Russia. He gives extravagant praise to the armed forces. Although the Russian commanders cannot spare troops for the annual review, Stalin insists that a show of strength must be made, and in the end, his will prevailed. The Red Army, whom Stalin calls upon to save sacred Russia, has changed a lot in 6 months. The soldiers who file past today, under the first snow of the year, are trained and newly equipped. The battalions of workers take their turn in Red Square. But with the parade hardly over, the troops who came to march past are sent up to the front, which is only 60 miles away, for already the indications are that the capital is surrounded. Any hopes of saving Moscow rest with the tanks, manned by young people. In one case, a family of brothers who get an emotional send-off from their father. On the roads leading into Moscow, from Leningrad and from Volokholansk, hastily constructed obstructions are put up. The German tanks advance in spite of sustained losses, in spite of the increasing cold, and in spite of the hardening resistance. They pass Borodino, scene of Napoleon's great victory, past the dead defenders. In the north, the advance guard reaches the Volga, then the Moskva Canal, in which enormous ice floes are drifting. The objective is only 30 miles away. In the south, Guderian has gone beyond the meridian of Moscow. The pincer movement is nearly closed. Suddenly, a great cold descends on the battlefield. Winter has come to the unexpected rescue of the Russians. The German forces are totally unprepared for such intense cold.